What is going on, Dominator? Dave Dominator here, back with a video, and I was kind of late on this, but the hockey season has already started. I want to kind of do similar things that I do with football, have watch-alongs on my Twitch and stuff. Um, but stay tuned for that at the end of this video. I already know this will probably be super long. I'm going to try to talk about every team and what their biggest worry is, I think, where I project them to be at the end of the league and or at the end of the regular season, and what teams I think will be battling for the Stanley Cup. With that being said, I'm going to try to be as quick as possible, as fast as possible. Let's go right into it. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference, going all the way down. Boston currently is 2-0 with their start. They have by far one of the best, if not the best, goalie tandem in the National Hockey League. And I think that with the bar that they set last year with one of the most historic regular seasons of all time, I just don't think they're going to hit that mark again. I think their expectations are a little shorter this year. I mean, I think their expectations this time around is make the postseason and win a series and make a run for the cup, because that's the thing that really diminished them last year. It's like people kind of forgot already that they had a great year last year. It's like they had one of the best years ever in hockey history, but nobody remembers it because they were out in the first round. And I mean, that's why, I always laugh when people are like, we want the cup. We want the cup. It was game one of the first round. It was like, all right, let's win, when you're in the conference championships and in the finals, yes. Vegas started chanting, we want the cup, when they had like 6 goals in the final game of the Stanley Cup final. So I think Boston fans need to be patient this year. I don't think they're going to have that great of a season like they did last year, of course, but I still think they have a great team, great group of guys. I think there will be a few problems here and there, but as long as every team stays healthy, these predictions should be pretty good. The Red Wings are 2-1. They also have a really good goalie tandem. They had James Reimer. Totally forgot he went to the Red Wings this year, and Husso played very good last year for them. Reimer played excellent for them in game 1 of the season, and I mean, if I'm a Red Wings fan, I'm looking pretty decent. I mean, you're in the running for Patrick Kane possibly. And I think for the Red Wings, you have a decent squad. I think as long as you could utilize everything you got, you can make a run. And I think they're one of my teams that could be sneakily in the postseason this year. I really do think that that's the case. Ottawa, same thing. I think Ottawa has a good goalie tandem as well. Defensively, I think there's a few questions. I think that offensively, can it work? Can it work offensively? Can you have depth scoring? Can you have everyone except for your top players, be consistent? I think that's really the biggest thing with Ottawa, is just how much could they actually put effort? I would see them similar to the Red Wings. I think if it works out for them, they'll be in the wild card area. I just think it depends mainly on if they can click on offense and find what they've been missing. They picked up a few guys in the offseason that should help them with that. And I think if they just work together, they have Tarasenko. That team could be interesting as the season goes on. The Maple Leafs are the Maple Leafs. We will obviously see them probably in the postseason as long as everyone stays healthy. Austin Matthews is already becoming, best player right now this season. He's starting off hot, 3 goals in back-to-back games is ridiculous. I think it comes down to staying healthy, comes down to their goaltending, their defense, which I always think lacks luster once the postseason starts. And I think this time, if I'm a Maple Leafs fan, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, let's consider this and remember how we celebrated like we won the cup after winning round 1. Let's see what happens if they can make the finals. And I think if I'm a Maple Leafs fan, I'm supporting them, but I'm also very nervous that they aren't gonna do well when the postseason starts up, because I feel like they always somehow struggle. Uh, Montreal is off to a weird start as well. I just feel like their young pieces could help them get to a possible wild card spot. I don't see it. I think as the season goes on, I feel like a lot of, Caulfield, Suzuki will only do so much. Um, and I think we'll kind of see Montreal go back to the bottom half of the league. I feel like they really don't have a great defense. I feel like they don't have a great offense or a depth offense. I feel like they don't have a great goaltender. I mean, Allen's okay, and he's been a starter in the league, but I think it's time. Like they need to find a rookie that could, possibly be the next Carey Price. Because obviously his career is pretty much done. Um, he hasn't played since the finals. I don't know where the Canadians go. Tampa Bay is gonna have a rough year this year. I think if they could just battle without Vasilevsky, they'll be okay. I think their defense is just not that great, and I mean we saw it in the playoffs last year. They just didn't look like the same team that looked dominant in that 1-2, two Stanley Cups and went to a third finals. They're not that team. They didn't look like that team last year, and I feel like Tampa needs to figure some things out. Maybe get a little younger. Find some more players that could help them on defense, and if Vasilevsky comes back, and I do think they can make the playoffs, but I would not be shocked if at the end of the year we see Tampa Bay trying to fight for a wild card spot because of the rocky start they had when Vasilevsky was out. Same thing with Florida. I mean, Florida went to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they looked like a team that could possibly shock the world and beat every great team. Because think about it, they beat Boston, which was one of the best teams in the league. They beat the Hurricane, and they beat the Maple Leafs. Everyone was like, okay, well, they just beat the top 3 teams in the league. They could beat Vegas. Vegas demolished them. So, due to the fact that that's happening, I just think that Florida needs to kind of fix some stuff. I think Bobrovsky's time in Florida is kind of coming to a halt. I think that they really do need to get Spencer Knight more looks. I mean, if he's playing in the AHL, I understand, but I think he needs to be a backup and needs to become that starter because they drafted him for that reason, to become the starter of this team, the future face of this franchise back in 2019. And we saw shades of that during the playoffs 2 years ago when they were going against Tampa Bay in the first round. And I remember that game because I was like, gosh, it's a must-win game. He comes in, beats them, plays the next game, has a little rough showing. They lose. But I thought that this team could be very interesting coming into it. I think defensively they're not great. Offensively, they have holes. And I think that this team could be in the same situation as last year, battling for a wild card spot. I don't think they're going to be as dominant. I don't think they're going to be as scary unless something happens where they start getting depth scoring or, their goaltending just starts going crazy again. To round out the Atlantic, Buffalo is off to a rough start, and Buffalo was one of those teams where I looked outside looking in. I was like, Buffalo could make the playoffs. Buffalo could be a wild card team. They have a young goaltender. They have a young defense. They have a really good defense, for the most part. And they got guys on offense. So far, none of that is showing. Their top guys have not shown really so far in the start of the year. I do think they're going to still be one of those teams that maybe make a late push. But it's kind of like last year where it's like last year they had a chance to go and make a push, but they didn't win games. And I think that losing games early on in the year affected them to then when they were falling down towards the end of the year, they got taken out. I think that they can't have that happen to them this time. They need to kind of flip the switch. These early games, I think a lot of people don't think that are that important. They're very important. Because these games, at the end of the day, these runs, the everything that these guys go through, that's going to affect them. Think about the Knights. They had a great start to the year last year, and that almost, it came down to like the final game of the year that they had to win to secure that number 1 spot in the West. So those early games are really much needed. So let's see where Buffalo is towards the end of the year. The Penguins are a similar thing. They're one of the oldest teams in the league. It's almost time for them to start thinking, okay, we need one last run with these core guys, and we need to have start thinking to ourselves, maybe we need someone different. Maybe we need younger guys. Maybe it's time for us to start thinking smarter about this. And I think that that's where it kind of comes from. That I think Jari so far has played very decent this year. He could even be a Vezina candidate. I truly think that. Um, I think that as long as they do well offensively and they fix the holes that they have in the defense, they could be a very good team in the Metropolitan, and they could make a little bit of a run. They missed it last year. They missed the playoffs. This year they're gonna try to look back and hopefully make a deep run. The Rangers are an interesting team. On paper, you want to say they win the cup. On paper, they have one of the best goalies. On paper, they have a really good offense, but in the playoffs, it fell short. In the playoffs, their defense, which is really good, just kind of didn't show up. They let a lot of things pass, and it makes me really think about, they want to bring Patrick Kane back, and I just don't know. I don't think the Rangers are capable of winning a Stanley Cup yet. They're still one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, but I just playoff-wise, I think they'll go to the playoffs, but then they won't get too crazy far. I mean, I know I'm saying that, and 2 years ago they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I really do think that everything has to work well with them. I think they'll have a good year, but I just feel like they're one of those teams that are going to be either hot and cold. Throw a coin up, and we'll see which one it is. Hurricane, kind of the same thing. Goaltending, I feel like, is always something that's interesting going into the postseason. They're a good squad. They're going to get guys back offensively. They're going to be one of the best offensive teams in the league, and I think that defensively they have a good group of guys, but I don't think they're great. All of them are great, but I think the Hurricanes, just the system they play in too, I think they'll be one of the best teams in the league again, and I definitely think that out of all of them, besides Boston, they're one of the best teams that could quite possibly win the Eastern Conference Championship and can quite possibly go to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Devils are an interesting team. They're one of those teams where I feel like they really need a goaltender when they think of trade deadline, which I will talk about guys who might be an option as we go, but they're a guy who kind of needs a veteran, maybe on his last legs, ready to go to try to win the cup. Because I just don't think the guys that they have will get them over there. Their defense is young, and I think if they can click early, their whole team is mixture between veterans and younger players, and I think if they can make it work, that team's easily the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think if their deadly scoring can just start getting utilized, that team is going to be hell every single time people play them. The Islanders are just the team that I don't know. They have one of the best goalies in the league. I mean, last year, in my opinion, he was one of the best in the league, and I just feel like offensively and defensively they have holes. They don't have a great unit. I don't know where we're looking, if we're looking at a team that might be making a run in the play, like a late wild card run, or if they're going to be towards the bottom of the league, but they just don't look great right now. The Philadelphia Flyers don't look great either. Carter Hart, one of those guys that could possibly be a trade candidate for the Devils. Probably not because it's the same division, but who knows. But I feel like defensively their team isn't great. Offensively their team isn't great. The team overall is not great. And I think that it's kind of time to let's start blowing up the ship. Let's rebuild stronger. Let's get a good core of guys in. And I think that's what they're banking on. They're banking on some of these younger guys that come in later on to be really big key pieces. And I think that just this team isn't built to win now, and I don't think that this team is going to be successful towards the end of the year. I think they'll be towards the bottom. Washington is interesting. I think Darcy Kemper is one of the better goaltenders in the league, and I mean, like, he does have some good games. Sometimes he has some bad games, and I think defensively, I think, but they're the second oldest team. I think it's time that they need to bring in a lot more younger guys. I think if Washington misses the playoffs again this year, I would not be shocked if this is the end of the group that they have now, and they start thinking about trading away players to get younger pieces and start thinking about maybe it's time for a rebuild. What does that mean for Ovechkin? I don't know. I feel like Ovechkin, he's a humble guy. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like he may or may not say, okay, it's fine. I want a cup. I don't need to, go and win one somewhere else. I'll stay here until I retire. That could quite be a possibility. You don't know. Columbus Blue Jackets, they were one of the worst teams last year. I mean, ever since they got Johnny Gaudreau, everyone assumed that, okay, well, they're going to be a great team. They haven't been a great team ever since. I feel like it's time to figure out what's wrong with them. If they're waiting for a lot of their young core pieces to try to get and step up, but I don't think it's going to happen. I would be shocked if they make a run in the wild card. I feel like they'll be towards the bottom of the league again. Colorado, to start off the Western Conference, one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. One of my picks of the West. Obviously, one of the best teams overall. Good defense, good offense, good goaltending. Colorado is going to be a team to be reckoned with this year. Chicago. I don't know. Chicago's so interesting because their goaltending, it's going to be either hot or cold depending on who's in net. Their defense is okay. I'm not going to say it's great, but it's okay. And they got guys in offense. I think a lot of people forget that, they got the number one pick and they got one of the best prospects in Connor Bedard. But, by the way, what do you guys say? Because I hear Connor Bedard, I don't know. I'm going to say Bedard. Connor Bedard. And I don't understand why people kind of forgot. They did bring in Taylor Hall, they brought in Corey Perry, and they brought in these older veterans that should help a little bit. Not make a playoff run, I don't think, but I think almost in that case, if they somehow make the playoffs, maybe let's roll with the veterans they got, or maybe they're also trade options towards the end of the year. Hey, do you need an older veteran? There's Corey Perry. There's Taylor Hall. St. Louis is interesting to me. I think Jordan Binnington has played very well in the games that he's played. I think that he's going to be an interesting candidate also for trading because I feel like St. Louis is in the process of a rebuild. I'd be shocked if they make the playoffs. I mean, think about every guy they've gotten rid of over the last few years. They got rid of, their former captain. They've really, ever since the Stanley Cup, really haven't been that team again. I'm interested in where they go and who they trade away because obviously that's a big deal. So I wouldn't be shocked if a team needing a goaltender and Jordan Binnington is one of those guys that ends up being a candidate. Dallas has only played one game this year. Didn't look great. I think it's the first game of the year. Let's kind of relax. I just felt like it was a lot closer than it should have been. I feel like the goal that Jay Gottinger let in was very poor. They have a very big challenge today with the Vegas Golden Knights being their second game, even since that's their second game, but Vegas has already played 3 games. So that's going to be interesting. But I'm not buying what Dallas is selling. I think that they're going to be a good team. I just feel like every time we get to the end of the postseason, they just crumble. They did it with the Oilers. They did it with Vegas. If they have to play Vegas again, I wouldn't be shocked if Vegas beats them again. If they have to play Colorado in the playoffs, I would not be shocked if Colorado just destroys them. Your goalie can only go as far as your defense is, and their defense isn't that great, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, they got some stars, but they really don't have a great full defense. So, and they're also, I know I didn't really talk about this with the other teams, but it's also coaching. I don't think DeBoer is a fantastic coach. I think he's a good coach, not a fantastic coach. And I feel like it comes down to making certain decisions. Think about this last year. When Jamie Benn got suspended in that Vegas game in game what? 3? They won back-to-back games after that with him out of the lineup. But then they still put him in. And I get that's your captain, but you don't mess with a winning lineup. And he did. And who knows? We could be talking about a possibility of them taking that to game 7. And maybe we have a whole different circumstance. Maybe the Vegas Golden Knights don't win the Cup. Maybe Dallas does go to the finals. We don't know. But one mistake like that could really make a big deal. Winnipeg is an interesting team. They're a wild card in my opinion. So far, by the way, Avalanche and the Stars are the only teams that I can guarantee you should and definitely be in the playoffs. Winnipeg has a good goalie. Winnipeg has a good defense. Has good defensive players. Has a good defense in certain ways, but it has a good offense as well. And I think that when you truly just think about their offense as a whole, that's a hot and cold offense sometimes. Sometimes they're so dominant. Sometimes they're just not as dominant. And I wonder what their plan is, because in the offseason, it sounded like they were trading away all their star players, and now they re-signed them all to deals, and now it's an interesting circumstance. So I'm interested in where Winnipeg goes. I do think that they are more at the wild card spot. In my head, they could quite possibly easily be back, but Winnipeg struggled the last few years. Same with Minnesota. Minnesota, this is also where I have my first goalie candidate. Listen, if you have your starting goaltender, why do you have Fleury? Because you're not going to need Fleury in the postseason at all. That's why I think a team like the Devils, who need a goalie, could quite possibly go get one. So I wonder what they do there, because I think Fleury is one of those guys who I think should be traded. If a team wants to make a run with a different goalie, if they're not confident in their goaltending. But Minnesota is always a hit or miss. I feel like they always somehow make it to the playoffs, but they always suck. So I wouldn't be shocked if they made it to the postseason. I also wouldn't be shocked if they made it in a wild card spot, but I also would not be shocked if they are, they only win one game in the series. Arizona, I think this is always the same thing with Arizona. That if you just the young core, get them moving, get your young guys in, and start making a little bit of noise. I feel like they have good young players, and then hopefully, more and more, hopefully they can get this outside hockey stuff done. Get the stadium done, get everything done, so then that way they could just focus on hockey. But I think Arizona just is going to be rough. Sorry if I'm jumbling over my words, and I already do that all the time. But my mouth is dry, and I have this freaking blister right here, and it hurts like a biatch. So that's why I look like I'm talking like I have problems. So if I don't off topic. Nashville right now is also interesting because it's they're in the process of trying to build this team to be successful. Their offense isn't clicking, their defense isn't clicking. Their goaltender is obviously one of the best in the league. If they can't fix this quick, I don't think that they're going to be a great team for long. I mean, I trust what Barry Trotz is trying to do, but I mean, Nashville could be a wild card spot. Their offense has to click, but there's something about Nashville that they have so many good players, but they just can never figure it out. So I'm interested in where Nashville goes. Same thing with Colorado here. Vegas has one of the best goaltending duos. I think people forgot about Logan Thompson was an all-star before he got hurt. And then I don't – where did people get this third-string Aiden Hill bullshit from? Because he wasn't the third stringer. Now, yes, we brought him in, but we brought him in as our third stringer when we realized Laurent Brossoit wouldn't be ready before the season. So then when Laurent Brossoit was hurt and we needed backup, we brought him in. Brossoit was hurt early as shit. Then it was literally Aiden Hill and Thompson almost all year as the backup front duo. So I don't know where people got that from. Because then Laurent Brossoit got healthy. Then he was put in the lineup, and then it was the same thing. He was a backup and blah, blah, blah. Starter, backup, whatever. Either way, I think Vegas is a good goaltending trio. I think their scheme, everything works. They're going back to the playoffs. Now, could they... And think about what the problem was with Vegas forever. The first year, it was defense. The second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, whatever the hell, every year before last year, they couldn't score in the postseason. What did they do more than ever? Score in the postseason and then play phenomenal defense. If they could do that again, this team could easily go back to back. Now, yes, they got it. In the West, they have really one team, and the only other team I think that could really challenge them in Colorado. But those matchups are going to be fun to watch, and that would be a fun series to watch. It was fun 2 years ago in 2021. I think it would be even more fun now. But yeah, they're going to be in the same situation. Vancouver's interesting. I think as long as their offensive players just get rolling, as long as their defensive players get rolling, Thatcher Demko keeps playing at a high level like he used to, they might be able to make a playoff spot. Calgary, their defense looks okay. I feel like it's always hot and cold. Their goaltending is always iffy, I feel like. Markstrom is a good goalie, but sometimes I just feel like he just makes so many mistakes that keeps them out of games. And then their offense is hit or miss sometimes. I feel like they lost a lot of players too. Think about it. They brought in Foley to be a freaking marksman, and then they got rid of him already. So I don't even remember where the hell Foley went. But yeah, they're probably going to be a wild card team if I were to guess. Same with Vancouver. Vancouver could be a wild card team, but I wouldn't be shocked if they stole a spot. Anaheim stinks. Nah, but really though, their goaltending has always been good. Their defense has always been bad, so it's hard to tell. And then I just feel like offensively they're not there yet. They're going to be at the bottom of the league. Let's just face that. But if these young guys could help them, they might be a little higher. San Jose, same thing. They're ass. They're not going to be a good team. It's going to be interesting to see their goaltenders, but they don't have much to look forward to. Kings, is it just me, or maybe it's because I'm a Vegas fan, and maybe because I'm the only one that actually sees things as 50-50. Am I the only guy that thinks the Kings are one of the most overrated teams every single year? Like, dude, it's not 2012 anymore. They haven't won a playoff series in forever. Like, when they played the Knights and we swept them, I thought that was the funniest thing ever, because we were just like, oh, they're not going to get past us, and we swept them. The Kings just haven't been good. So far this season, their offense isn't that good, their defense isn't that good, and they brought in an older goalie who I don't think is that great either. Like, Cam Talbot was 2 years ago a really solid goaltender. With Minnesota, he looked like a guy that could be deadly in the NHL. But now you're on a team that has very bad defense, And I just don't see it. Wow, why did you bring him in? Because you need a goaltender for the postseason? Because that's not who you go for. But I think the Kings might be out of they might be out of the playoffs this year, or they might be a wild card team. I don't think they're going to be as good as last year. I felt like they won a lot of games that were close. And it's not. And when you look at that, that could change the goddamn game. Like, if they don't win those games this year, they're not a postseason team. So it's that easy. Look at the Vikings in the NFL. They were 11-0 in one-score games. This season, they're like 0-4. So that can make a difference on your postseason. Seattle, I don't know about Seattle right now. I think they're a wild card team. I do think that as the season goes on, they could get better. Goaltending just really hasn't looked strong. Defense hasn't looked strong. Offense hasn't looked strong. So as the season goes on, we'll see what happens. I would project them to be in the postseason again or near that level. But they got a lot of big shoes. I think a lot of people are expecting them to be the new Vegas Golden Knights, like that in a few years they'll win the cup. I think for Seattle, you have to look at them differently just because I feel like head coaching wise, Vegas, by the time year 3 came around, Vegas already had a new head coach midway through the year. So I'm interested to see where Seattle can go from here. Edmonton, everyone's also losing their shit on Edmonton, but to close out this video, it is this simple. The Edmonton Oilers are not as good as everyone thinks they are, and that's why they're not going to win the Stanley Cup. And now, I could look back at this video, and I could be 100% wrong, but let me explain. I feel like their head coach makes stupid decisions. Like in that Vegas series, Campbell, every time he came into relief, played very well. But he still put in Skinner, who obviously could not read Vegas' offense for shit. They would beat him in the same position multiple times per game. They would literally attack his weaknesses, and he never took him. He always took him out when it was too late. It makes no sense to me. Their defense is ass. I don't care what anybody says. Their defense has always been bad. The last 2 years, 3 years, it's been very bad. And your offense is revolved around 2 people. And that is what irritates me because last year, that is all they said. Well, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, those guys are going to destroy the Vegas Golden Knights. So just those 2 players? Crazy. Well, you need a goaltender, defenseman, and at least 10 more forwards to beat Vegas. You want to know why? Because Vegas and all these other teams use 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, and a goalie in a game. So it doesn't matter if you have the best player in the world. You could have a plastic plate and paint it gold. Guess what? At the end of the day, it's still a plastic plate. So there's no reason why Edmonton, offensively, they'll find their way during the season. When it comes to the postseason, and I'll say the same thing I said about everyone else. If you play the Dallas Stars, you might win. You play the Vegas Golden Knights or the Colorado Avalanche in the Western Finals or in the playoffs in general, they will destroy you. Because all you need to do is figure out a way to stop those 2 players, and they have no way of beating you. Vegas stopped McDavid a decent amount in their series. They couldn't figure out how to stop fucking Draisaitl for anything. But they could figure out how to stop McDavid, and that's what made them lose the game. And that's what really, affected the series. So Edmonton's in a scary situation when they hit the playoffs. That's what I have to think. I'm sorry, this is a long video. And like I said, if you stuck with me, thank you. Through my stumbling, my everything, I appreciate you. Like this video if you liked it. Comment down below on what you think your predictions are. Who's your Stanley Cup winners? Who is the team you think is going to be surprisingly good, surprisingly bad? Do you have a Vesna vote already? Like, what do you? Let me know your comments. Now, stick with me on these two sites. I post a lot on. I need to start using Twitter, and I will not change the. I'm not gonna change it. Never say never, but never. Um, and Instagram as well. And Twitch streams. I always Twitch stream. Actually, I've been down lately, but when I do Twitch stream, it's normally reacting to stuff and watching games that are live. And now that hockey's back, that's probably going to happen a lot more. But I hope you guys have a great day. Sorry that you guys watched this hell of a video. Dominate the world. David Dominators out. Peace.